Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast alongside Tom Vanderford. And this time is a pregame show for the Peach Bowl because I overbooked this weekend and I didn't want people to not get their slot. So instead of doing a live stream pregame show where a lot of the same stuff is going to be talked about, we're going to have you on instead. How about that, Tommy?
I appreciate that, man.
Well, this Peach Bowl is interesting because on paper it's the exact same team if you look at resumes, but they're also polar opposite of each other in the way that they function and the way they go about their business. So that provides an interesting dynamic as well. And you have best on best type situation with Ole Miss's offense going against the Penn State defense. And all of this is very intriguing. So why are you watching? What are you going to be paying attention to in the game?
Number one, I'm a Shawnee Sistrunk's number one fan. It's his last game. But what I'm really going to be paying attention to, and what I think is the key of the game, is our offensive line versus their defensive line. If our offensive line can open up holes for the running game, can support the passing game, and I think we win. I think our offense versus their defense will be the key. I think our defense needs to stop their run game. Their quarterback is a physical guy. He can run. He can throw the deep ball. But
he's talented.
He is very talented. He's very talented. I saw somewhere where I think Jared Ivey likened him to the quarterback at Arkansas, to Jefferson.
KJ Jefferson. Yeah.
And, so that's something to look at. I think our defense will be fired up. I'm sure that Penn State will be fired up too. So it's a really good matchup. It really is a good matchup. I'm looking, I want to see, I've always been told don't just give lip service, and I want to see Jaxson Dart and that offense where they've been talking about we're not worried about what's in the future. We're worried about the bowl game. We want to make history, making history being winning 11 games in one season that's never been done at Ole Miss. So I want to see some outstanding play by our football team.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because if you look back at the games against really good teams that Penn State have played, and the Alabama and Georgia game is going to be on the level of Ole Miss playing Penn State, and the Ohio State and the Michigan game will be on the area of Penn State playing Ole Miss. So both teams have a really monstrous game. But if you look at that Michigan game, Penn State fans have gotten angry in my comments anytime that I have compared them to anybody but the 85 Bears. It's some of the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But when you look at the Michigan game, who does not have the offensive line that Michigan in years past have had, they didn't have to throw a pass in the second half to take care of Penn State, which tells me that defense can be run on if you just stay at it. You might get 2 and 3 yards a carry at first, but eventually that dam will break. And you have to wonder, is that the plan, or are they going to do the true RPO type stuff? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting to see. That's kind of what we did in the Egg Bowl. We didn't throw a lot. We just kept running and kept running and kept running. And in the fourth quarter, we just ran and ran and ran and ran in the third and fourth quarter. I'm not likening Penn State's defensive line to Mississippi State's, but that is a possibility that we pound it. It'll be interesting to see how we approach it.
Really interesting stuff, Tommy. These are the reasons on yesterday's Why Ole Miss Wins video that I think that Ole Miss is going to be able to separate. I had tempo is going to be the number one key of this game. It absolutely is. Tempo, Penn State has not seen tempo in offenses that run this fast. And we know that teams that like to match up, that like to get exotic, can have trouble. Big Ten is more of an exotic type league, so it could be problematic because Penn State is going to have to play base most of the time. I think Ole Miss is going to do a decent job containing the run game, resulting in 3rd and 6+. And I think that Ole Miss has the better quarterback, running back, and wide receiver in this game. And that is the reason I think that Ole Miss is going to win the football game. Honestly, those are the three things that people, I think, need to watch for. But these are the areas that are game-winning type areas for Ole Miss in this football game.
Well, I agree. And also, I don't know who's really running the defense. I know that their defensive coordinator took the head coaching job at Duke.
It's Anthony Poindexter.
Okay. And I know Tom Allen's coming next year, who I have a lot of respect for, actually. But I do believe that they'll do just about the same defense they've done all year. But you brought up a good point. If we're running tempo, it's hard to substitute personnel, substitute packages, so on and so forth. And like you said, you don't see a lot of tempo in the B1G. You don't see the team speed in the B1G, I think that they're going to see against Ole Miss. But at the same time, like I said, they've got a monster defensive line. They've got a pretty good secondary, so it's going to be interesting to see. They believe they can shut us down, and I think we believe we can score on them. So we're going to find out. This is a good matchup, man.
Yeah, and I talked with Zach Seiko on the crossover, and he said that even though Chop Robinson and Johnny Dixon, although he's saying that Johnny Dixon's going to play, I'm not doubting him at all on that one, but Chop Robinson we know is opted out. The offensive tackle and Johnny Dixon, we don't know. It could be one way or another. They had weirdly worded graphics. The same thing could happen with some secondary players. And this is what I found out. Penn State in past, whenever they had opt-outs, they weren't true opt-outs. They were, hey, we're going to put you on a 10 to 15 play pitch count in this game. And after that, you're basically done. And this is kind of like the reward, bring you down and do all of that stuff. And if that happens, I think it will be important for Ole Miss more than ever to stay on schedule and get first down just so they can get the play count up.
Right.
Because eventually you can chew those guys out of the game, and it's going to get easier and easier and easier for the Ole Miss Rebels moving forward.
Yeah, we only had one opt-out, and I wish he would have played, but I think we're going to be all right with him not playing. I wish him well. And I think that our defensive line is up to the task. I think our linebackers are going to be up to the task. I think Centurion Perkins is going to be healthy. I think that's huge. I also think that Dudley will get some snaps. And we've got a good rotation anyway. We got Xavion Harris, we got Pegues, we got Ivy, we got Ukwu. We got some good players.
This is interesting, talking about the opt-outs. And before the bowl games get over, I do want to give my opinion on opt-outs because I think this is going to get more of a contentious, worse situation next year. And it's because of this. Whenever a kid is in reach of fulfilling his dreams and all of that, getting ready for all of the stuff that the NFL brings to the table and all that potential life-changing money, they have to do what's in their best interest. That doesn't change. But you cannot ask people to not get upset about that whenever they have donated their hard-earned money to your athletic department, and then the kid ended up quitting before the end of the season. It's going to do things. The kid probably needs to look out for himself. He's doing what he needs to do, but do not get mad at people who are mad because their hard-earned money just ended up getting wasted because they quit before the end of the season. It is one of those things. It's two things in this situation are true. I know we hate that phrase, but two things can be true. And it's a situation where Ole Miss fans, you're going to look at somebody that opted out and did something like this at a lower level than somebody that played in the game. If Cedric Johnson would have played 10 plays in this football game, if they would have put him on a pitch count, just like Penn State is planning on doing, it's all good. It's the Chucky Mullins Award winner, everything. But as it sits right now, all of the money that I'm assuming that Cedric Johnson got NIL, which means the Grove Collective and everybody else, which everybody's been begging for money from the average fan. Maybe Jimmy and Johnny had a little bit less comfortable Christmas because they were donating to the collective. You can't get mad at those people for being mad that somebody walked out before the end of the season. You can't do that. You can't tell people, we need your money. You have to give us money, and then say, okay, don't talk. Do not have an opinion on what's going on. That doesn't work.
Exactly. You know, over the years, I've heard the phrase buy into the program. Well, many of us are a member of the Grove Collective, and we bought into the program. And, you know, you touched on it earlier. I don't have a problem with him not playing, but a lot of people have a problem with the Chucky Mullins winner not playing. And they think that that's a disservice to Chucky. Now, I will say this. He may have looked at what happened to Matt Corral and had thoughts. You know, Matt was like, I'm playing no matter what. And, you know, he got hurt, and then he got hurt again his rookie year, and he's out of the league right now. So you got to think of a lot of times.
Yeah, but those weren't related.
But this is what gets me, though, is he opts out of our bowl game, but he's going to play in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, nobody opts out of the Senior Bowl. That's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, but, you know, I don't know. I have no idea why, but I'm glad it's just one person, and I hope it next year will be interesting.
Yeah, because people are giving money now. They're really digging in.
Yeah, and we have a lot of talent that will be declaring for the draft next year, and it'll be interesting to see how that is handled.
Yeah, it's just that we're in an age where whatever the player wants, the player gets, but that's going to start going the other direction because we're the ones paying the salary. Joe fans, the ones that's actually paying the salary. The schools, they get off scot-free in this situation. They get to function as if they already had. It all goes back. It all gets pushed off to the side. I guess for universities, it's a fantastic business model. But, it's always going to be interesting.
Yeah, it is. And you know, let's not forget, those kids are getting a scholarship and a meal plan and a bunch of other stuff from the university, but their paychecks coming from Joe Fan. And don't get me wrong, I know there are some people that donate massive amounts of money to the NIL, the Grove Collective NIL, but there are also literally thousands of people that are given $21, $48, $100 a month, and that adds up as well.
Yeah. So that just whenever you see somebody get angry because a player opted out, yes, the player has every right to do it. You can walk out of your job right now if you chose to do it. I mean, you can do that, but that doesn't mean there's no consequences. That doesn't mean your legacy doesn't get affected. There's other things that are important. Yes, he's going to chase his dream. Yes, he's going to do all of that stuff. But he is walking out on you before the season actually ends, and you paid a lot of your hard-earned money for him to do it. I think both reactions are perfectly okay, honestly.
I agree.
All right, so What do you think? You talked about the Ole Miss offensive line against the Penn State defensive line. I think the Ole Miss defensive line against the Penn State offensive line. Penn State has the advantage over Ole Miss in the trenches, real similar to the way that honestly Georgia, Alabama, and Texas A&M did during the season. Ole Miss went 1-2 against those teams. It's hard to win football games whenever you are the weaker trench team. What do you talked about wanting to see them run the ball effectively and stuff like that. What about Trey Harris? What about Jordan Watkins and those guys on the outside? I think Ole Miss needs to get out of the middle of the field. They need to concentrate a little bit on the side to side in a game like this.
Oh, I think so too. I think that we've got a really good opportunity with our receivers. Don't forget Dayton Wade. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's
from Atlanta.
He's from Atlanta. He's going to want to show up and show out. But, yeah, we have Jordan Watkins, Trey Harris, and Dayton. I mean, we got three guys with awesome receptions this year with good yards. And I'm just hoping that we can pass and run. I think it's going to take both. I know that just from reading what the Penn State kids have said, their main job is going to be to stop Quinshon Judkins.
Oh, yeah. He's going to get their eyes, every one of their eyes.
What they want. They want to stop him. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's imperative, and I think it's imperative that Prieskorn has a good game, both blocking and receiving. But we've just I would love to see Trey Harris have an awesome game, make some of those circus catches, Dayton Wade, hopefully Jordan Watkins' hands a little bit better, and hopefully our quarterback's a little bit healthier. We were kind of banged up there at the end of the year, so
they were banged up pretty good. So that month probably did them some good.
Yeah, there was a reason we ran the ball mostly in the Egg Bowl. But
Jaxson Dart could not hand the ball off with his left hand. He had to do it wrong-handed against Louisiana Monroe.
Exactly, because his shoulder was so banged up. So hopefully, that's a lot better off, and we'll see a really good game.
All right, so we got into the score prediction part of the broadcast. What you got, Tommy?
It's going to be a close one, man. Ole Miss 21, Penn State 19.
Okay. The 1986 Ole Miss LSU score for amateur historians out there. I'm going with Ole Miss 34, Penn State 31. I think this game has a chance to get a little bit hairy because it's a bowl game. I think that tempo is going to affect things and offenses are going to kind of get going. I think you'll see a situation where Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss's offense get out to a quick 14-0 lead, and Penn State has to scramble a little bit. And I think Drew Aller is going to be better than we think he's going to be.
I think he is too.
So we'll see exactly how that goes. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This has been the Peach Bowl pregame show with Tom Vanderford. I'm Stephen Willis. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And, Tommy, enjoy the game, man.
Yes, sir. All of y'all enjoy the game, and hotty toddy.